Good morning, good evening, wherever you're following us. I am Bukeni Waruzi, and I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to meet with you this morning. First of all, I want to say thank you so very much to the Caribbean colleagues for putting together this wonderful event. Modern slavery and trafficking in person is a global phenomenon, but also it happens mostly at domestic level, locally in our own community. And coming together to form this network, it is really an indication of how determined we are to really put our effort to end this scourge. As I always say, no country is immune from trafficking, whether it is from the global north to the global south. We are all in this together. And at the same time, no single agency or government or institution or NGO can end it alone. We'll need to come together. So there are so many reasons why we have to coalesce, we have to network, we have to partner, we have to come together to put our effort and unite for this cause. I know some of the countries are very well rated in, when it comes to the TIP report. Some of them are not well rated, but that is just statistics. But this issue affects people. It affects our girls and boys, our moms and dads, our sisters and brothers. So coming together signals that we are more than ever united, and this is the way to go. Is the way to go because traffickers are so smart and they have so many channels, and we can only really fight against them if we put all our brains, our effort, our resources together. So I want to say really congratulations to the team, of course, led by Sandra and Adrian, and also our colleague Daihan, and really coming together from United Nations agency, local organizations, survivor networks, and free the slaves, of course. The idea of forming a network won't be a new idea at Free the Slaves. It is part of our core strategy of building a movement. And that movement starts in the communities where modern slavery occurs, where trafficking in person occurs. So it is a great day that at least a child is born, and a child has, we will grow, and the child will mature, and that child has a family, has a community, and that is what is the coalition, the Caribbean coalition, against trafficking in persons. So I'm not going to take too long, as I was given a small task of kind of opening up these wonderful initiatives as we start the discussions here. And really, one more thing that I wanted just to kind of to highlight here, the beauty of the coalition itself is that it brings everybody, government, United Nations agency, civil society organizations, survivors, but really we will need the survivors to lead as we all on the solutions. So we are happy that we have the community of survivor joining in this initiative, and we are really very grateful for all of us, for all of you, for really taking the time and really the effort, the commitment that you're going to have here. There are a few initiatives that I think Adrian will probably outline a little bit in terms of the objectives, the goal for this coalition. And really, the responses to modern slavery can come everywhere. But we first we have to come together to put those ideas on on the tables, learn from each other, but also lead the movement in the region. And here we have the best brains to do that. From, as I say, from government to survivor through civil society organizations and businesses alike, everybody really, and the academics. So it is something that really will, we have high hopes in in what this coalition can accomplish. It is something really that we believe it will help really move the mountains if we can. But also no pressure at all. That's not my intention to put pressure on the coalition, but really to elevate the space that we have hope in, really having the solutions that we dearly really need. So I want to say really thank you for this initiative and really congratulations to you and all of us, that came with this idea, which is a very tremendous, very strategic and very smart idea, to come together and work together in a more strategic way and really commit together in a way that will help us make an impact in the region and also and support initiatives that can contribute to addressing human trafficking in the Caribbean region. With that, I say really thank you, and I yield back to you, Adrian.
Thank you very much, Bukeni. Next, we have Mr. Tim Howe, Senior Regional Specialist on Migration Protection and Assistance for the IOM. Tim, over to you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me well. I think it was both very difficult and very easy to follow Bukeni. It's difficult because what else can be said, but I think it's very easy because thank you so much, Bukeni, because I think you set the tone very nicely. So anything I'm going to say now cannot possibly ruin what you just created there. So no, thank you so much on behalf of the International Organization for Migration for the invitation today. We're actually really humbled that you invited us to speak today together with other partners. And when I sent a bilateral congratulatory message to Adrian yesterday, he immediately responded to me in a very humble way and pointed to everybody in the region and to the efforts done by everybody, including the great team of Free the Slave, Sandra, Adrian. But I know there are many, so I won't point everybody out. But I think that is the right spirit. And I think this is why we're so happy to join the discussion today. We feel the creation of this coalition is extremly timely in various respects. And I remember I had the pleasure of joining the 2023 forum in Trinidad and Tobago, which was extremely vibrant, very dynamic. I learned so much, we learned so much, and the discussions were so interesting. And then I was told the last forum in Jamaica was even more vibrant and even more interesting. But I remember very well that in 2023, the idea of a coalition was floated because there were so many ideas in the room. And people kept on throwing in so many good ideas that it seemed very logical to connect the dots. So it's great that you're here now, that we are here now today. The other reason I think why it is timely, and I'm just going to go quickly into some of the key trends that we are seeing from IOM to link a little bit perhaps to what you're going to talk about more today, and I know for the years and decades to come, is that we're seeing a couple of macro trends at global level. And as Bukeni said, trafficking is everywhere, and we need to ensure that counter-trafficking is also everywhere, right? What we are seeing, particularly from as IOM, when we look at the link to migration and displacement, we know that human mobility is increasing, which is not a bad thing at all. I mean, we need to be very clear on that. Migration has always been there, it will always be there, and it is a force for good. However, what we're of course concerned about is people leaving for the wrong reason, people leaving against their will, and people leaving in an irregular way, including when there is no strong migration policy that can ensure that vulnerabilities are addressed. Because this is the link where we see counter trafficking, exploitation, abuse does not just appear out of the blue, but often traffickers prey on vulnerabilities. And this is why we're so concerned about certain trends in the migration sphere and why we think we need to double, if not triple, our efforts against trafficking. There's also, of course, a key link to migration and what we should call really the climate crisis. I mean, you all know the early onset this year of the hurricane season is one out of many, many warning signals we keep on getting. We're estimating that already 300 million people live in communities extremely vulnerable to climate change. And what does this mean? When people are vulnerable, it means, again, that it's so much easier for traffickers to make a profit. They will be targeting people, so people need enhanced levels of protection. Now, the role of civil society in this, I think we cannot underestimate the role of civil society, much to the contrary. And anything that we see, and often as IOM, we say we've been working a long time on counter trafficking with many partners. We've been assisting around 100,000 victims of trafficking over the past year. So we think we've seen a lot, but what we really see every day is the key role of grassroots organizations, of people really out there in communities. I talked about affected communities. So we need to start our efforts there. And that's what we're seeing. Bukeni very rightly said, sometimes we get a bit blinded by statistics and numbers and estimates. And that's the risk, because we know that at the end of the day, we are not even identifying most of the victims of trafficking that are out there. But if we want to do that, we need to connect the dots, and we need to work with civil society. We need to reach to the people to make everybody understand that everybody can identify a victim of trafficking. And then the second stage is everything that has to do with protection and referral services, where again, it's NGOs, right, that in reality are providing much of the service, much of the assistance that are really there to support. So again, we think connecting these dots in the Caribbean will be a force for good, will be extremely important. I'm just going to conclude, because I'm taking the hint also from Bukeni, that we try to be very short and concise. So let me just conclude by saying we've been working on counter trafficking as IOM for more than 25 years. And at some point, and I think I reflected on that also in the forum in 2023, and I know Zeke, when he, from my IOM colleague from Trinidad Tobago, who's also connected, when he participated in Jamaica this year, made also some reflections on that. At some point, we felt like we had to re-evaluate how we were working on counter trafficking, because we were doing everything from prevention campaigns to protection to training prosecutors, anything under the sun, and everything is important. But we sat down and we went through this exercise of saying, what has really worked for us as IOM? What is our added value at this? And I invite you to look at our homepage. You can look for IOM's theory of change, because we concluded that we need to stop doing everything, and we really need to refocus our efforts on certain areas. Two out of these areas I wanted to mention to you, because one has to do with coordination and cooperation, because we said we can help on that. One example is last year, for the first time, this year, sorry, for the first time, we launched a targeted sub-regional strategy for the Caribbean only. We had never done that before, and shame on us, because we should have done that before. But when you look through the strategy, it's full of references on building partnerships, working with CARICOM, working with governments, but also really promoting whole of government approaches and whole of society approaches. Again, even what Bukeni said about the academic world, it's very important that we amplify our understanding. So this you can see in the theory of change. You can see reflected in more and more of our documents, and hopefully our approach. And you tell us, you be the ones to criticize us on that or to hold us accountable on that. And the second element in the theory of change that came out is the work on referral mechanisms, helping governments, because ultimately it's their responsibility, setting up referral mechanisms that work and that are inclusive, and that are inclusive also of the voice of civil society. And very important, with that, I promise I stop, the voice of survivors. If I'm being honest, I've really been so impressed also by the forums held by Free the Slaves, because you've consistently been doing such a good job on really putting the spotlight on survivors in a good way and putting them at the center of discussions. This is something that we are missing in too many initiatives. And I think I'm really looking forward from this coalition to see more and to get inspiration. We've worked with Free the Slaves a lot in other coalitions, also, for example, the Alliance 8.7, where Free the Slaves has shown really how civil society needs to be a voice in all of these global processes around the SDGs. So count on us, and that's my last sentence, count on us to leverage anything you do. And if we can support anything, I think we'd be very happy to do with our traditional partners, such as, of course, UNODC and others. So thank you so much again for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Tim. Very encouraging to hear. And we welcome this continued journey You and Zeke really lit a fire under us with the talk of having a regional prevention action plan at the forum last year. And you'll be pleased to hear that's one of our main projects for the coalition to bring to fruition. And of course, we can't do it alone. We certainly would need all of our partners along with us. So thank you. At this point, it's my pleasure to introduce Lissette Reyes, Caribbean Project Officer of the UNODC. She stood with us neck and neck as we planned the 2023 forum, was unable to attend, but she was there with us for the 2024 forum planning, as well as executing it. So Lissette, pleasure to have you. Over to you.
Thank you, Adrian. Good morning. First of all, thank you for the invitation and providing this space and this platform for us to come together. I gotta say, you know, following Tim and Bukeni's remarks, it's a little hard. You guys truthfully have set the stage and the tone to be very complex to be able to sort of complete or add to some of the great stuff that you brought up. But I think on behalf of UNODC first, you know, I want to congratulate this space. I feel it very dearly to my heart, having been in the planning of the previous forum and, you know, having been in Jamaica recently where we heard, you know, we heard from survivors, we heard from organizations, we heard from government officials, you know, the crucial need of having a dedicated space for the Caribbean to discuss trafficking in persons. More so, you know, as I work in the Caribbean in the region, I think it's key to have a space that everyone, because we talk about the region, but I always sort of showcase and put out there that, you know, the Caribbean has very specific characteristics that we need to be aware of, and our interventions need to be very specific to the needs of the countries in the Caribbean. One of my favorite things of working in the region too is that what works in Jamaica may not necessarily work in Trinidad, and having that understanding continues to be crucial in the different interventions that we do. Tim was bringing up, you know, a topic that is pretty important to me in all of the interventions that UNODC is trying to engage with in the region. It's precisely the identification and screening of trafficking. Our latest report, our latest global trafficking persons report, brought up that Central America and the Caribbean had a 36% reduction in the amount of victims that, you know, was identified in the reporting period. And usually if you hear that, you'd say, oh my God, you know, the crime got reduced, we had less trafficking victims, but rather the reality is that since most of the efforts of law enforcement for a long time were focused on COVID, then recovering from COVID, there were so many victims that were left, you know, unidentified, so many people that require, you know, our help, and, you know, spaces and platforms like this one are going to be key to drive that. One of the key learning experiences and results out of joining spaces and the collaboration with Free This Lives as well, having been at the latest forum, you know, I heard, and I was out there on, you know, we need a space, we need to work together. And as UNODC, I work really hard so we can host the Trafficking in Persons Committee Forum. It's a regional event for government officials specifically to discuss the topic of trafficking specifically for the Caribbean. And that was a direct response to the request of stakeholders that joined the Caribbean Forum this last, I think it was April in Jamaica. One of the other reasons why launching this coalition is very timely, you know, today is July 31st. We just went through World Day Trafficking in Persons. And the theme of this year, as you all know, is Leave No Child Behind, but we all work together to make sure we leave no one behind. And I think also efforts like this are key to make sure we leave no one behind. I was at an event last Friday and I said, you know, we tend to think that this is only a law enforcement thing, a prosecutor effort, or, you know, a survivors initiative. Rather, I said, this is the whole of society effort that we need to have, an approach where we teach and we make everyone aware of the risk of human trafficking, but more importantly, its effects. That having that closeness to working with survivors, with leaders like Sandra, with leaders like Shamir, who joined at the Jamaica Forum, allowed me to learn this phrase that said, one victim is too many victims. And we need to continue to work to make sure we identify, but more than anything, that we prevent and that we protect our children, our women, and everyone in our communities. I think, you know, on behalf of UNODC and within our role of, you know, providing technical assistance and working with stakeholders, combat trafficking, I think we're very excited and very eager to the work that the coalition is going to bring for our region. So thank you again. Thank you, Adrian, Free the Slaves, and all of the partners for the work that you do. And I can't wait to see what the future holds. Thank you again.
You're welcome, Lissette, and thank you. It's really been a pleasure working alongside you on behalf of UNODC, and there's a lot more work to be done. So we're gonna roll up our sleeves and keep getting at it. At this time, we'd like to invite Miguel Trim. He is the Trafficking Persons Analyst for the CariSECURE 2.0 project of the UNDP. Miguel, thanks so much for joining us. Over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Adrian and colleagues. With all protocol observed, good morning to all gathered here virtually on the heels of yesterday's observance of the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. And also thank you again so much for the invitation to today's proceedings, and congratulations on bringing this coalition to fruition. It's a profound honor to address you today on behalf of the United Nations Development Programme on this occasion of the launch of the Caribbean Coalition Against Trafficking in Persons. We gather here today united by a shared commitment to combat the scourge of human trafficking, a heinous crime that undermines human rights, impedes sustainable development, and erodes the very fabric of our societies. This occasion marks a significant milestone in our collective mission to eradicate human trafficking and support survivors throughout the Caribbean. Human trafficking is a complex and multifaceted issue that requires a concerted and coordinated response. I think this has been elaborated by many of the presentations here so far this morning. It's a violation of most basic human rights, affecting millions of people worldwide, with devastating consequences for individuals, families, and communities. In the Caribbean, the challenges posed by human trafficking are particularly acute, given the region's unique geographic, economic, and social dynamics. The UNDP is proud to support the Caribbean Coalition Against Human Trafficking, a critical initiative that brings together governments, civil society, regional and international organizations, and other stakeholders to forge a united front against this grave violation of human dignity. Through collaboration, we can enhance our collective capacity to prevent trafficking, protect victims, prosecute offenders, and promote partnerships that drive sustainable change. A cornerstone of our efforts in this regard is the CariSECURE 2.0 project. This initiative, funded by the United States Agency for International Development and implemented by UNDP, aims to strengthen the capacity of Caribbean countries to collect, analyze, and use crime data effectively. By improving data-driven decision-making, CariSECURE 2.0 enhances the ability of governments to address human trafficking and other security challenges more effectively. Accurate and reliable data is essential for understanding the scope of trafficking, identifying trends, and developing targeted interventions that can save lives and restore hope. Our commitment to combating human trafficking is also deeply aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly SDG 16, which calls for peace, justice, and strong institutions, and Target 16.2, which specifically calls for ending abuse, exploitation, trafficking, and all forms of violence and torture against children. Human trafficking is a direct affront to these goals, and our efforts to eradicate human trafficking are integral to achieving a more just, inclusive, and resilient world. By addressing the root causes of trafficking, such as poverty, inequality, and lack of opportunities, we contribute to broader development objectives that benefit all members of society. In this fight, prevention is paramount. We must focus on raising awareness, strengthening legal frameworks, and enhancing the capacities of law enforcement and judicial systems to respond to trafficking effectively. Equally important is the protection and empowerment of victims, as we've highlighted today. Survivors of trafficking need comprehensive support services, including legal assistance, healthcare, psychological support, and opportunities for education and employment to rebuild their lives with dignity and hope. We also recognize the indispensable role of partnerships. The Freedom from Slavery Caribbean Regional Forums in 2023 and 2024 underscored the need for greater collaboration. These forums brought stakeholders together, emphasizing that we are stronger when we work as one. No single entity can tackle human trafficking alone. We must work together, governments, international organizations, civil society, the private sector, and communities, to create a robust and coordinated response. The Caribbean Coalition Against Human Trafficking exemplifies the power of partnerships in action, and we are committed to supporting this coalition in every possible way. Let me share a few words from survivors who remind us why this coalition and collaboration is so crucial. One survivor noted, when countries work together, it feels like the whole world is fighting for you, not just a single organization. Another said, collaboration between nations gives us hope that no one will be left behind, and every trafficker will be brought to justice. Through our collaboration with Free the Slaves, who will serve as the secretariat for the coalition, we aim to further strengthen our efforts. The expertise in creating a survivor-informed movement has been invaluable. Strengthening collaboration with key partners in the region, such as IOM, UNODC, and CARICOM Impacts is also critical, and through projects such as CariSECURE 2.0, we are actively working towards making these connections. Together, we aim not only address the immediate needs of survivors, but also build systems that prevent trafficking from occurring in the first place. In closing, let us reaffirm our collective resolve to eradicate human trafficking in the Caribbean and beyond. Let us continue to champion the rights and dignity of every individual, and let us work tirelessly to create a world where no one is exploited or enslaved. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can build a future that is safe, just, and prosperous for all. Thank you for your commitment to this cause and to your continued efforts to achieve the vision of a Caribbean free from human trafficking. Thank you.